Hello, friends, and welcome back to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster.
Once upon a time, you told me how funny it was that people asked me what my favorite maritime disasters are.
Ah, yes.
And I think part of that, obviously, some of it is something that is deeply strange and wrong with me, but also it's just about growing up on the Great Lakes.
Mm.
So today I wanted to share with you the story of a Great Lakes disaster that has always stuck with me. Um, Warning, this is going to be a little bit on the darker side. Spoiler alert, there is a shipwreck. But I hope,
What?
yeah, I hope folks still enjoy hearing this story. We are going to be discussing the wreck of the Lady Elgin.
Oh, poor
Yeah.
lady.
Poor lady. So, for any of our international listeners, or really anyone who has not been to the area, the Great Lakes are serious business. These are not like just a regular lake that you can like see across.
No,
Uh,
in fact, they're great.
they are, one might say, they are great. So, the Great Lake Shipwreck Museum estimates that there have been more than 6,000 shipwrecks on the Great Lakes.
Wow.
Some say that that number should be much higher just because, the lack of records in earlier points in history. But I will say the fact that there is a Great Lake Shipwreck Museum does kind of speak for itself.
Yeah.
That
What? I didn't.
was
That's crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah. So commercial sailing began on the Great Lakes in the late 1600s, and the majority of shipwrecks are from the 19th century, which is when traffic on the lakes was at its peak. So Lake Superior gets a lot of the attention for being the scariest of the Great Lakes, but Lake Michigan has a lot of stories too. Uh, so I did first hear about this story from my lovely friend Anna, who I've mentioned on the podcast before. She has written a book called Shipwrecks of the Great Lakes. And then I also referred to a article in Great Lakes Boating to prep this episode. So we are going to head back to 1851, which is when the Lady Elgin was first built in Buffalo, New York. So she is a passenger steamship and is considered to be like pretty fabulous. It's a nice ship. It says that she was popular with passengers. You got to do it. So she's originally traveling from Buffalo to Chicago, kind of along all the Great Lakes, and then does a route from Chicago to Ontario as well. And I'm just like, imagine if we were just cruising around on steamships all the time, Midge.
I'm also having a realization that I don't know shit about the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
What do you mean it goes all the way to Buffalo?
Yeah. So that was like the reason that the Great Lakes had so much shipping is because you could get in from the Atlantic Ocean and go through Erie and around and go all the way up to Superior and into Canada.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I knew they were big, but I didn't know it was all that. That's crazy.
yeah. So there's a lot of boating traffic on there, and that's what I'm like when I'm obviously we mourn a lot about like the lack of like train travel in the U.S. these days. But I'm like,
Hmm.
how about a steamship, man? I would take a steamship to New York. Like
Yeah,
that'd be
yeah.
pretty
Well,
dope.
maybe not with your motion sickness, but
Yeah, I actually don't do too bad on boats, but I am nervous. Like I've never
Mm,
gone on like a cruise because I'm afraid, but like I can handle like a boat like on a lake. So we'll see.
okay, okay.
Maybe one day. But Lady Elgin, despite her popularity, did have some difficulties. So, I'm this is ironic to bring up to you, Midge, but you know how sometimes once bad stuff starts happening, it's just like the hits are just keep on coming.
Don't stop coming and they don't stop
They
coming.
don't
Yeah.
stop coming. So she is built in 1851. 3 years later, she hits a rock off the coast of Manitowoc, Wisconsin, and sinks.
Oh,
They fix
fully?
her. So I was reading this in this Great Lakes boating article. I think this is what he's referring to. So like they quote, a history teacher who has been like researching it, and he says that she basically just like makes it to the dock and just sinks right there, like into the
Oh
harbor.
no. That's
Um,
that's so embarrassing.
so embarrassing. They do fix her back up, but the next year, in 1855, she has a machinery issue and she has to be towed home from Chicago. I'm like, classic walk of shame, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and also they're like, this is the best boat we have. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, and then in 1857 there's a fire, and then in 1858 she hits a reef in June and then gets stranded on a different reef in August.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
and in 1859 there are two separate occasions where she has something break down and has to be towed back to port. So she's
Okay,
having
so she's
some
not doing great.
she's
Yeah.
having some rough times. Also, I didn't find any other source for this besides this Mr. I think it was Peter Tim, who was the person quoted in this article, but he says there was a time that there was a circus on the boat and the
Oh, slay.
elephant was like tugging on the rudder chain. I don't know
What?
if that's true, but it is wild if true.
I'm picturing that scene in The Ring where they're on the ferry and the horse gets loose.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of
Yes,
thing.
but an
Yeah.
elephant.
But it's just a whole elephant.
Just a whole elephant. But now we have reached 1860. Do you think something bad might happen to the Lady Elgin in 1860,
Well,
Midge?
it's not been looking great up to this point, so possibly.
Yeah. So this is we're in September now. September 6th, the Lady Elgin
Not
sails
2 days before my birthday.
2 days before Midge's birthday. She sails from Milwaukee to Chicago. The ship has been chartered by Milwaukee's Irish Union Guard, which was a militia because that was a thing that was still happening in the
Great.
1800s. Um, it was really interesting as I was reading this because I feel like we have talked a lot about death things in their relationship to the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
This maritime disaster is also brought to you by the Civil War. So,
Sponsor of today's show,
sponsor of
the
today's
Civil
show,
War.
Civil War. So Wisconsin was always a free state, but there was actually a big political divide at the time about whether or not Wisconsin should secede because the federal government hadn't outlawed slavery. So
Mm.
they were like, unless you outlaw slavery, maybe we're just going to dip. So the governor of Wisconsin was pro seceding and was like, okay, militias, if we secede, are you going to be on our side? And the head of the Union Guard was like, I'm not. I'm also against slavery, but I feel like that's unconstitutional. I don't think we could do that. And just like every Republican fears, the government took their guns away. We're like, you can't be a militia anymore. Um,
No.
and they were like, well, fuck that. We're still going to be a militia. They were like, we have to fundraise. So they put together this sweet boat trip to go down to Chicago to have political speeches and rallies, raise some funds. So they set sail on the 6th, spend the day on the 7th, doing all their political stuff, having rallies. And at 11:30 p.m., they get back on the boat to head back to Milwaukee, complete with a German brass band to play on their way back.
Oh, like you
Pretty
do.
cool. Pretty cool. Uh, so Captain Wilson, whose first name I could not find anywhere, so maybe it was just Captain.
Captain, yeah, first
Just
name Captain,
Captain.
last name Wilson.
Yes. He did not want to sail back to Milwaukee because there was a storm coming. And everyone is like, boo. So 2 hours later, they do end up setting sail, and there is indeed a storm.
Oh, yep, classic.
Classic. So in this storm, there's gale force winds. The Lady Elgin is sailing north to Milwaukee. She is all lit up and beautiful. The band is playing. There's music and dancing, and a lumber
Where have we
scoop.
seen this before?
Right. So people do actually call this the Titanic of the Great Lakes.
Oh, well, there you have it.
There you go. And a lumber schooner called Augusta of Oswego is headed south to Chicago with only one single white light. And at 2:30 a.m., the Augusta T-bones the Lady Elgin.
Womp womp.
Womp, womp, womp. And ma'am, this is a hit and run because the Augusta keeps on going. The Lady Elgin was almost twice as big as the Augusta, so they were like, "Oh shit! Like if we hit this boat, like we must be more damaged." Like you think of in a car crash, like if you're in a
If a
little,
truck hits a
oh
beetle, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like the Beatles, like, "Oh, if I hit a truck, the truck's probably okay. I'm the one that might be having
Mm-hmm.
problems." So they were like, ah, shit, we better keep going. We carry on for Chicago. But they had, in fact, gashed open the hull below the waterline, and the Lady Elgin immediately begins to sink. Uh, the captain tries throwing cargo overboard in order to lighten the ship to try and get kind of that above there, but it only took like 20 minutes for it to break apart and sink.
Dang.
Yes. So the Lady Elgin is, to this day, considered the largest loss of life in open water on the Great Lakes because there is another really bad one that happened at a dock,
Oh my gosh.
maybe on a future one. But we actually don't know how many people died because there was no manifest. It was just a day trip, and
Mm,
people had all kind of loaded themselves on board. I think they said it was like they were charging $1 for people to get on there. It was a fundraiser, so they estimate that there were around 400 people on board, and there
jeez.
were only 98 survivors.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, so extremely tragic. The survivors do start kind of washing up on shore in Illinois, and it is kind of obviously incredibly sad story, but it sounds like the community there really kind of rallied together. Like people who had like lakefront homes started opening it up to like triage and take in survivors. There were students from the university who were like swimming out to rescue people.
Oh my
um
goodness.
yeah, so it was intense, very sad day. The captain of the Augusta, this was his first time on the Augusta, so
Ooh.
rough first day. His name was Darius Malat, and he was arrested and tried for navigational negligence, but was found not guilty. So at this time, there were no laws that required you to have lights on your boat.
Oh,
Uh,
sure, yeah.
yeah, which was actually passed as a law due in the wake of this disaster.
I was gonna say, I wonder why.
Right. But it was just accepted as a tragic accident. Like they had cited the Elgin like 20 minutes before, but with the rain and the wind, they didn't think that they were going to intersect until suddenly they
Mm.
were. But I think that this captain, Malat, was maybe final destination because 4 years later, he is captaining the Mojave, which goes down not far from where the Lady Elgin sank, drowning him and the entire crew.
Oh my gosh.
Which is like I said, this is the Great Lakes have a lot of disasters. There's a lot of shipwrecks. They're
Apparently.
they're just rolling up down there. But yeah, this like we just said, some people called this the Titanic of the Great Lakes. It is in today, but it was pretty much forgotten about at the time. Most likely because the Civil War started and was happening.
Right, right.
So people were pretty distracted by that. And Lady Elgin was missing for over 100 years until the wreck was discovered in 1989, the year that I was born.
Wow.
Wow! So maybe Lady Elgin and I have a spiritual connection, Mitch.
Yeah, well, she heard there was a person being born who was
Yeah.
gonna love maritime
Yes.
disaster.
She was
So
like,
she was like,
I
I
better
better
come back.
surface. Yeah.
Yeah, there was basically like a shipwreck enthusiast. It sounds like in like the 1970s was like, I've decided to find the Lady Elgin, and started searching and did in fact find her. It sounds like the site has pretty much been looted at this point, sadly, by divers kind of snatching stuff. There are four different chunks of the ship that are down there. It is pretty common to do like shipwreck scuba diving in the Great Lakes. There are a couple on there, and people are discovering ships all the time. Actually, as I was researching this episode, this past Tuesday, somebody found a shipwreck that's been missing for like
Oh,
over 100 years.
what?
So they,
So, do you know? Does it say in anything like what, like how far down are we talking that these are? Like the how
I'm
deep
not
is the lake?
sure, but I mean, it gets pretty deep. Hold on, let me do some. Okay, so the one that they just found was
Mm-hmm.
350 feet down, and
Whoa. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, it gets pretty deep. And so like, and these are like on the off the coasts, so it'll like kind of part of it'll pop up. The one that they just found was a tugboat that didn't like sink in a disaster, but also random maritime fact. Apparently in the olden times, they were just like, well, we'll just sink the ship when it's like in disrepair.
Oh, like insurance fraud, but not.
No, just I think just like to just they were like, well, where are you going to throw away a ship? Like it's already in a lake. Like
Yeah,
just
just
dump
like,
it.
and would they have like people take it out there and then have like a lifeboat or something and just be like, la la
Yeah, I
la.
don't know. It's called scuttling. I don't know the details, but there you go. There's a name for
Hmm.
that. But yes, so yeah, so someone just a fisherman just found this the other day because of like there was like a part of the wreckage that was only in like 9 feet of water because of like where the lake had moved, but the majority of it was further down. So
Okay.
pretty cool. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure about how deep Lady Elgin is, but it's probably something kind of similar. Let me see if I've got you. Yeah, because it was 2 or 3 miles off of the coast that it went down.
That's not
But
far.
no, yeah,
That's crazy.
because that is like sailing between Milwaukee and Chicago. Like that's basically north and south. Like you're not having to like cross the lake, so you would
Mm-hmm.
kind of go up along the coast, um, and
Wow,
try
that's
and do your
crazy.
best. But yeah, there was also there's some drama. I wasn't going to get into this, but I told the story quickly today, so I'll tell you guys. Uh, the guy who discovered the Lady Elgin is Henry Zich, Harry Zich. And there was like a whole drama about who the Lady Elgin belonged to, because he was like, I found it, finders keepers, basically. And the state of Illinois was like, no, this should be ours. This should be in a
Oh, like a
museum.
historic,
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yes.
Well, what's
Um,
Harry gonna do with it?
just hang out
Just
there
have it?
and go down there, I guess. So he did, so that he like took like the Department of Transportation to court fighting about this. There is a federal law that shipwrecks belong to public people, like the people, if they are in state waters. Um,
Hmm.
but basically, what he did was he bought the ownership rights to the Lady Elgin from the insurance carrier. And because the Lady Elgin was insured, they got a payout. The owner got a payout for it, but like they never ordered the vessel abandoned. So he was like, well, it's not an abandoned shipwreck. It still belongs to these people. So I now buy
Weird.
it. And so they were like, yeah,
Well,
that's
like,
fine. And then they were like, no, actually, that seems sus.
well, because like presumably the state of Illinois wanted it, like they would have brought it up, right?
Yeah,
Like
most
and
likely.
put some part of it in the museum or something.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you just want to own it, Harry, to like what? Look at it at the bottom of the lake? Like,
Yeah, well, his point was, he was like, you guys don't have any money to do that. So like, when are you going to do that, basically?
mm.
And the state was kind of like, well, bet. So yeah, so there's been a lot of back and forth. He was supposed to get paid $20,000 for finding it
So, okay,
and
that's
give
what it is. He wants
yeah,
money. I
yes,
gotcha.
and
I
that he would
gotcha.
return any of the artifacts, but then he never got paid, and the state accused him of taking artifacts,
Okay,
and
okay.
drama. So he still has control over it as far as I'm aware, and will like you can ask him and he grants permission for people to dive and check it out, but unfortunately it is not available for like public
That's also
diving.
so funny. Like, how would they know? Like, you know, if somebody's
Yeah.
like, hey, that's a privately owned shipwreck. Get out of
Right.
there. Like, what do you mean? This is a public lake. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that it seems pretty goofy to me,
it's
but
extremely goofy.
yeah, and yeah, like from the beginning, because this was all
I'm
happening
picturing
in
him having like chains with like no
right.
trespassing signs 350 feet underwater. Like,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, and like this was happening in like the 90s, and his claim was always that he wanted to do like a traveling exhibition, but as far as I know, nothing ever happened with that. So I don't know. We see these like treasure hunty kind of guys. They have an interesting perspective on life sometimes, I think.
so from what I can find, it looks like she's only about 55 to 60 feet down.
Oh, cool. So she's closer.
Yeah, which I mean is
Yeah.
still a lot of water, let's be clear. But comparatively to old tugboat over there.
Yeah, yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, because I know, and there are multiple shipwrecks like along the coast, and there is a like you can scuba dive and go and check them out, and most of them, unless they're privately owned, I guess.
Yeah, apparently. That's so funny.
But yeah, that is the tragic story of the Lady Elgin.
Wow, I had no idea that like, well, apparently anything about the Great Lakes. I had no idea
Yeah.
that there was that much boat traffic. I had no idea that it went that far. I had no idea that like there had been that many like enough shipwrecks that it was like book worthy.
Hmm.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, yeah. I think that it's not something that people who don't live around the
Grew up
Great
around
Lakes
there,
hear about,
right?
because it doesn't the news does not spread that far. Like we talk a lot, like everyone obviously has heard of like the Edmund Fitzgerald in Lake Superior, but I think that's the only like boat kind of related incident that folks hear about. So I thought that
Yeah.
it might be nice to bring, we love a Milwaukee connection.
Hmm.
So wanted to bring a story from my hometown to the people.
Love it when it's Penny's Maritime Disaster Corner.
Yes. Yeah. And obviously, there are many of them. So if folks are interested in hearing more tales of maritime disaster, do let me know, because I am happy to tell you about them.
She's
Uh,
got a binder, actually. She's been waiting,
right. Just
waiting
flipping
for you to
through.
ask. Yeah.
Pretty much, pretty much. I'm like, oh, really? Yes. So this was the one when Midge had made that comment. My answer when the person asked what my favorite maritime disaster was,
Was
I did say Lady Elgin. So that's why I thought that would be a good one to start with
That's so funny. I
throughout. And it's
also
such a good name. It's a good boat name.
that should like if you ever did drag, you should be
I was
Lady Elgin.
yes, I was gonna say I was like my drag name is Lady Elgin.
I also have
uh,
to comment now that we're towards the end here,
yeah,
because just you saying you got through your info really quickly, I had the thought of like, it's because I wasn't interrupting you the whole time. That's what
yeah,
normally happens. For those who are for somehow not noticing that my voice sounds like crap,
yeah.
I have strep throat, so I'm not talking very much.
Yes.
Made me laugh 17 minutes in. Penny's like, wow, I got through that really quickly. I'm like, yeah, because Midge shut up for once.
Well, I mean, the whole point of the show is not shutting up and bothering
Well,
each other during
so
it.
true.
So
So true.
yes, although I did obviously when I was preparing this episode, I did not know that you would be sick. But
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
worked out because obviously this wasn't like a yucks aplenty kind of topic. So it was a good one to get more of a straightforward National Geographic type reporting on.
Changing the title of our podcast to Yucks Aplenty.
For sure. Well, if you guys out there enjoyed this episode, please do let us know. If you are moved to leave a review, you can do so all over the place on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a comment on Spotify. You can send us a DM on Instagram. And I do believe Midge has a review to read for us today. If
I
she
do.
can, if her voice can manage.
Can hold on, yeah. This is a 5-star from Apple Podcasts from Tear B, titled "Always Looking Forward to New Eps." The ghouls bring high energy. Hilarious that that's today. Do you feel my high energy, Penny? The ghouls bring high energy and a lot of fun to the episodes. If you love Halloween and or anything spooky, then these are the ghouls for you. Jack-o'-lantern emoji.
Yay! It's true.
Yay. That's true. We are your ghouls if you need to hear about a shipwreck or how many bodies there are on Everest.
Yep, this is the place.
This is the time and the place.
Yes. And if you would like to chat with us and other ghouls about all of those topics and more, you should join us over on Discord. We're having a great time. We are just chit chatting. There are lots of folks who are new to Discord, so don't feel nervous. It's basically just like a bunch of group texts with cool friends.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's like a chat room, and then I was like, I don't know how old people are. You nailed
Truly.
it with the group text. That's the equivalent.
Yes. And you can also follow along with the pod on our Instagram at Ghouls Night In Pod. And if you are looking for me, you can find me at Penny Snark.
And you can find me all over the web at Midge Munster.
And until next time.
Good.
I don't know if you can do this, Midge.
I can do it. I can do it.
All right.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.